How would you advise, let's just say American leadership, to keep it broad, on as to what steps to take next to properly navigate this digital transition?
I think the most important thing is to get the order of operations right, which is to say, this is a debt restructuring at the end of the day. With 125% debt to GDP, 8% deficit of GDP at near full employment, foreigners having $13 trillion in dollar-denominated debt, but $22 trillion net in dollar assets, including $8.5 trillion in treasuries. If you cut spending really at all aggressively, you're going to send the dollar up because you're going to push growth down, dollar emissions down globally, dollar's going to rise. Or if you put in aggressive tariffs, you're going to make the dollar rise mechanically. Same dynamic in terms of dollar flows. If you do anything that makes the dollar rise much more from here first, you will trigger the worst financial crisis in decades, if not since the Great Depression. Because what you will do is you will send the dollar up, and as the dollar goes up, yields will go up. And as yields go up, because yields are going to go up because foreigners are short dollars on their dollar borrowings, they're long dollar assets, they will send stocks down, they will send treasuries down. We will go right back to that 3Q23 setup of dollar up, rates up, stocks down, wash, rinse, repeat until either they come in with a bunch of dollar liquidity, which is going to be very credibility harming. It's basically make themselves look stupid. You know, hey, we're going to cut a bunch of stuff. And then the market promptly crashes and the economy promptly crashes and interest rates skyrocket. And then a month later, if they come back and go, well, we have to print money again, or we have to QE again to help the banks, you're done. Just go home, because now you're just like everybody else. You're all these other administrations. You're controlled by the banks. MAGA's dead. For whatever its merits, it's dead. So you have to get the order right. The only order that is right, that makes sense, you have to devalue the dollar first and big. And by that, I mean you got to get debt to GDP from 125% today, probably closer to 70%, 80%, like instantly. You can do that a number of different ways. I've talked about it with like a gold revaluation. I've talked where it creates a cheap Treasury general account deposit that you can literally go buy the debt in the market and retire it without having an offsetting debt increase, and it would be very inflationary. You could have the Fed come out and just slash rates to zero, basically.
Right.
You could. I'm sure there's other things Treasury could do.
Isn't some of that debt owed directly to the Fed too? They could just extinguish
some of it. Maybe they could. Yeah, I mean the Fed's balance sheet's still what, $7 trillion something, right?
Yeah.
So some portion of that, there's maybe you could do something like that, right? Exactly. You restructure it. There's things you could do, but if you get the dollar down first, big, and get the debt to GDP down, like the debt to GDP is really the biggest thing. That gives you the flexibility to then say, you just think about it conceptually. We're going to spend a bunch of money to reshore and retrain America's working class labor force and build submarines and all the stuff we need to do that we can't do now. And if debt to GDP is 125%, the bond market goes, and now you got to come in and cap it with yield curve control. And again, now you're that guy again, helping the banks. You've discredited yourself. You're better off just do it up front. And then the bond market will be like, oh, okay. I mean, the price wise, at least. I mean, you're still going to lose money on a real basis there. But by anesthetizing the bond market, it no longer has the vote and the power that it has. And to be clear, from our prior point, that power it has is now a threat to national security. Like China and Russia absolutely know they can weaponize that debt against us. You know, it's not just a competition of America versus China. The competition is when does the Treasury market get dysfunctional, and does that happen faster than China? And what China has learned over the last 3 years is, we got a lot of issues, but the fuse on our issues is way longer than the fuse on the Treasury market. By getting the debt to GDP down, you suddenly give massively right away, you give yourself massive more credibility when you sit down to negotiate these tough conversations around these trade deals. Because right now, China, you sit down with China, we want you to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
China goes,
You got no leverage.
piss off.
Yeah.
You know what? Come back to me in 2 months when the 10 years at 5 and rising every day.
Right.
And now you come back and go, we can wait.
Yeah.
You know, the 10 years is going to be fine no matter what.
Right.
So why don't you, figure out what we're going to agree
Gaining
to.
leverage by reducing leverage, actually.
That's exactly it. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it in those terms. That's exactly it.
That's so interesting. What? Okay. If we go down that path, wouldn't you want to, I guess, signal to American leadership that they would want to signal to the American population before they do this major dollar devaluation? Because it sounds like, to your earlier point about revitalizing and rebuilding the middle class, you would, I don't know how exactly they would go about this, but say, hey guys, we're about to devalue the shit out of the dollar, so you might as well put some purchasing power in gold and Bitcoin. You've been warned, right? PSA. Does that fit into what you're describing here?
In theory, yes. And as you say that, all I can hear is ETFs. Why all of it? Like I know of. I think there was an organic reason that happened. Mm-hmm. At least that's some of like what I've heard. There was an organic reason that some of the change of heart around it. But even then, if we were still in a world that a lot of people think we're in, which is nothing that is allowed to compete with the treasury bond and the dollar should be elevated. Is it possible? I mean, to my eyes, why wasn't the ETF thing strangled in the crib no matter what? No. Gensler, no. Get whoever it is, no, they're not going to get approved. No. But it wasn't no. And not only was it not no, I mean, we're talking about very systemically important and easy for retail to access, most importantly.
So this is like that Bilderberg meeting you said where they wanted to let Black go. Okay.
Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. Right. But like, look, if you don't own Bitcoin, like no one knew how to buy Bitcoin. Now you can buy it at Fidelity and BlackRock. And like, these are not, Coinbase, as big a company as it is still not known to probably 90% of Americans over age 50.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 50, whatever it is. I'm not disparaging their brand recognition or anything. I'm just saying as an example.
Yeah.
But everybody's got, Fidelity, BlackRock, Van Eyck, whoever's, these household fund names. So I'm spitballing tinfoil hatting here a bit, but it's not lost on me because I think it's a very valid question, right? Like, and the other thing too is there's something to be said for it's a little bit of a revolution, right? When you came into the Civil War, apparently 60% of the wealth in this country was held in the South. This is per Peter Turchin, his book End Times. And they wanted wide open free trade. You've got very low cost labor. And I don't, that sounds very flippant and offensive. I don't know. Just factually, that's the case. They probably had amongst the they had very low cost labor and they were agrarian, right? So they competed with everybody very well and, they were selling agrarian products. And so they wanted wide open trade barriers. And in the meantime, the up and coming wealth was technology, rails, steel, shipping in the North. And they didn't want to compete with Britain and Germany and wanted trade protections. And so a little bit of it is, are we watching a shifting of sort of, you and I know who owns Bitcoin, the types of, they come from all kind of different walks of life, but I would say they're all creditors.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
They're sort of builders and creditors.
Nerdy entrepreneur types.
Entrepreneurial builders, creditors.
Yeah.
That's a good group of people that you want to like have a lot more purchasing power.
That's who you want allocating the capital.
So, I mean, look, I'm probably ascribing way too much forethought and motive, but just spitballing it. I think it's, to answer your question directly, the ETF thing and the implied retail expansion and reach, not only when,
Right.
but the speed at which that happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they've been talking about it forever, but like when it was decided, I was taken a little bit back. I was like, wow, that really happened fast.
It flipped completely because it was stonewalled
forever.
And then
Then it was like, okay. I was like,
yeah.
So who knows? Like I said, I have some familiarity with it. You know, I think in some cases it was a very organic decision.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean,
yeah, this is, I'm an optimistic guy, but a lot of these conversations on this particular topic tend to veer into the domain of the pessimism and the gloom and doom. This is an oddly optimistic vision of the future, I think.
I'm an optimistic guy. You could title this discussion. Luke's actually an optimistic guy. If I had a dime for every time I was accused of being some doom porn guy, I'd be retired already.
Not the conversation I expected to have at all, but actually really, it makes a lot of sense. Actually, I don't think it's naively optimistic by any stretch.
No, I think, and like I said, even 12 months ago, I think it would have been naively optimistic, particularly vis-a-vis Bitcoin.
Right. How fast things change now.
It changed fast there. The other thing that really, I think, changed that we may find out about, we may not find out about, but NATO got crushed in Ukraine, including American strategies and American weaponry.
Right.
Yes, the Russians took a lot of losses, but we lost. And I think that may have been, when layered in with the financial and fiscal stuff we've talked about, I think that might have been it, of like, okay, like the time for slow rolling this reindustrialization, right? Because like Biden never repealed Trump's tariffs.
Right.
Right up until that election, the Biden-Harris administration was putting out a new reindustrialize America and build America's mineral reserves. Their constituency, if they would have seen that, would have lost their freaking minds. Again, I think it's the right thing to do, but I'm someone who, when I look at things, I look for not just what it's telling me, but I also look for the dog that doesn't bark. And you have that administration building up manufacturing and minerals, like, number one. But number two, he's senile and she can't operate without a teleprompter. So like, she didn't write the thing. She's not telling me we need to buy lithium and cobalt. Come on. So who's writing that?
Yeah.
One of the adults.
Right.
And one of the adults in a green administration, very far green,
right,
wants to get involved in a much bigger way in the dirtiest friggin' business there is. What are we supposed to think of that? Weeks before the election. Like this was like, that thing gets out there, like their base could have been completely demotivated.
Yeah.
It's the right thing to do for America. But there's these kind of little signs all over. And I think ultimately it ties back to the Ukraine situation, which is we couldn't produce what we needed to produce. And I don't think this is particularly controversial to say at all. We couldn't produce when we needed to produce it. You can find it everywhere. You talk to anybody, unclassified stuff, like it didn't go well. And from the standpoint of like, we couldn't produce it fast enough. And in the meantime, David P. Goldman's saying he's hearing the Chinese can put out 5,000 cruise missile engines a week with their automated factories.
Wow.
We have like 5,000 cruise missiles total in inventory.
Fuck. Wow.
So if that's even halfway true, if that's 90% wrong,
it's still,
there's fires lit under asses across the Beltway. And it's no longer, we need to protect the bond market. No one's going to give a shit about the bond market.
Shit got real. So is it then the losses, right? Losses in Afghanistan, losses in Ukraine. We're going to see a pullback of imperialism and
I think on some level, I think that's like a realist. I mean, you're starting to see a little bit, right? When you listen to Elbridge Colby, who's I think acting in some sort of advisorial capacity to the Trump administration. It's realism.
Yeah.
This whole
It's realism. Yeah.
And realism is ultimately about reattaching the energy to the currency.
Exactly. Making the money real again.
We can't supply enough missiles to Ukraine without taking them from Israel.
Right.
And you want to talk about defending Taiwan? Like Hegseth gave an interview 2 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, something where it talked about like we run Pentagon war games, game after game after game. And one thing we all have in common in Taiwan, we always lose. We can't win there. Huh. It's the same problem that we have with Ukraine and Russia. It's in their backyard, right? Like they have sort of, operational dominance because it's in their backyard. Yeah. So we have needs. We aren't addressing the needs, and we've been going at it from like a fiat mindset, a financialized mindset of, well, just print more. You even see it this week with we're going to send all the money we have left to Ukraine that we can give them. We're going to give it to them. Why? It's over.
So it's the American empire has become overextended.
Yes.
That realization is dawning, or has dawned.
It has dawned. I think it started dawning, 6 years ago. There was a report assessing America's defense industrial base. And, the unclassified version you can find online, it's 128 pages of like, holy crap, I can't believe we're this dangerously single or dual source to China on this much stuff.
Wow.
That was 6 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm told it's gotten orders of magnitude worse since, in terms of oh my gosh, I can't believe we're this sole sourced, right? And you're seeing it now all over. Chinese sanctions a drone maker in the U.S. Can't make the drones without the Chinese batteries. Wow. Boeing, the machinists. We don't have these are all symptoms of the same problem, which is the fiat has gotten too far away from the energy, from the production.
Right.
And once you get too far away and you need to go in a hurry, you can go slow, but we don't have the time.
It takes a long time to turn the battleship around.
Right. And we don't have the time. So you're going to have to go fast.
If you enjoyed this clip, click here for the full episode and here for more just like it. Also, like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and subscribe to stay connected. Thank you.